Here I am with the creator of Final Space, Hello, Rogers.
It's me.
How's it going? He's also the voice of Gary.
Gary. Yep, I'm Gary.
All right, hey Gary, want to say some words to the Blogging Plaza?
Hang in there, guys. You're doing good. Hang in there.
Yeah, I really love it, especially when you get along with, well, not get along with Kevin.
Yeah, no, Kevin sucks. Yeah, no, anything with Kevin, no, don't worry about Kevin. Just hang in there, guys.
Also,
Hang in there.
Also, your brotherhood with Avocado,
It's true. Avocado's great.
and of course, his son, Little Cato,
Little Cato's good too. Spider Cat is always a friend of mine.
and of course, with Quinn.
Yes, my boy Bueno, super spicy lady. Who could have forgotten?
Oh man, I love those moments. But of course, let's not forget Mooncake.
I know, Mooncake is the shining star of my heart.
And this is why I always remember when you dance to Footloose.
Yeah, that's my favorite song.
All right, so this is the Blogging Plaza. I'm gonna make a big vlog talking about this chapter.
Yes.
Because I made all about the 3 seasons. So take us away, Mooncake.
Chocolate Park.
It's been a long time. It's been a long journey, but we finally made it. After 3 televised seasons, 1 unfair cancellation, the Final Space decides we're not gonna end it like this. So it decided to finish it off in graphic novel form. And it's been kind of 3 years since the announcement. I think it was a Kickstarter campaign. It was a campaign. A lot of people supported it, myself included, because I really like Final Space. And lo and behold, here it is. I'm having the copy of it, and to make things even more intriguing, there was a book tour that the closest thing to where I can get to was in Brooklyn. Is basically a meet and greet to the creator, Alan Rogers, and I brought the book. I got an autograph. See, here it is with the autograph. You've seen. I took picture, made a video in which you already seen it at the beginning of this video, because man, this guy really It really feels like I was hanging out with Gary. Oh, well, he voiced Gary, of course, but in the sense that the guy was pretty happy. He was full of joy. He was charismatic. He was had this catchy, uplifting personality that was sympathetic. And yeah, I bought also the T-shirt that was selling over there. Pretty comfy, pretty comfy, I'll say. The only thing that I wish they could have done is that they should have made a Mooncake plushie. Man, I just kind of really wish that there was a Mooncake plushie. So I know that I'm usually the kind of guy who I use my vlogs, kind of like just a hobby that I do. Mostly I talk about the movies I watch. TV series I kind of dropped for a long time because it was beginning to be too much of a hassle, too much into my mind, and so much that this is why I did drop when the Agretzico vlogs. Don't worry, I did watch all the Agretzico seasons, and I was satisfied. But I think that Final Space was one of those rare occasions in which I decided I have to talk about it. and well, it wasn't televised or made a TV series. I think that for a really underrated series that it really deserves the attention of a lot of people is it's still worth kind of like this video that I decided to make to put kind of like a final cap to the whole series, and of course that talking about the book itself is kind of odd because I will say that the chapters are of course divided, and it really plays out like you're reading basically the script of the TV series. Each chapter really has kind of like this episodic nature that you can read one chapter and you think that you just finished one episode of this series. But I think that at least for the sake of this book, and since it's not very long that it has come out, I think it's now 2 weeks. It's been now 2 weeks ever since it is sold on retail. And by the way, this the cover that you see here, this was mostly reserved for the people who back up the project. When you go to the bookstore, it has another cover. Personally, and even the creator himself, I like this one better. That one looks very epic, and of course it has kind of like the nice cover and all that. So talking about and also it's been kind of like many years since I've been talking about it, and some of the events that happened on the finale of the third season kind of went off into my mind. But thankfully, the book actually, I think like 10% of this book actually gives us a Cliff Note version of the whole of this all the important events of the 3 seasons. And also just a little bit of a note. I really like that they got in comic book form one of my favorite moments that I can show you. Here it is. It's the moment where Gary finds out that Kevin died, and if you know him, he has this deep hatred to the robot, and he has this dumb smile on his face that he's like, oh, it's so beautiful. It doesn't say it doesn't say it there, but that dumb smile on his face is so hilarious. Don't worry, Kevin revives much to his chagrin if you remember. But I will say that once I received this book, in which it was indeed a really long wait. I had to wait like a whole month and a half ever since they say, oh, we're gonna start shipping. They were shipping in the order of their confirmation orders and all this stuff, and mine was like 39,000, so I had to wait until that moment. And once I received it in my hands, I spent the whole day reading it slowly. I didn't even bother to go to the final pages because I just wanted to feel it. It was one of those few times in which I was so invested on a graphic novel for a long time. And usually when I read a book, sometimes I have kind of like the bad habit to flip the pages to the end and to give me a little bit of an idea of how it's gonna end. I did that with Lord of the Rings books, the Harry Potter books, the Jurassic Park book, and all that stuff. But this one was an exception. And I even told Olin that I was more kind of like the a fantasy guy, but well, I did enjoy watching my Star Wars things or or some space stuff like Guardian of the Galaxy. I didn't think that sci-fi was kind of like my biggest cup of tea. Sometimes I don't. It's hard for me to understand, but this one is became kind of like the first time I just got so invested on a sci-fi IP to the point that I just got hooked. I read all the pages once I got it, and I stayed the whole day reading it. And I almost didn't take a break. I just needed to know. I think that one of these days, I'm gonna reread this but this time it has the added value that in certain segments of the book, there have some QR codes in which once you put the QR, it'll lead you to a website that it'll put the soundtrack and the appropriate music for that specific part. It starts playing. So I'm gonna try to do this once I get a little bit of a free time. Oh, and speaking of QR, at the end of the book, there's also these 4 QR codes, in which basically they're gonna continue a little bit more with in expanding the universe of Final Space. So this is why they're called expansion. They're basically side stories. And by the way, only one of them is already finished, which is basically the battle between the Ventrixians and the Trivolgians. It's basically the same race of Fox, and how that battle that lasted 1,000 years lasted. I think they were working out on the second one that will come up sometime in summer. There's the third one, and I know that the fourth one is basically expanding the ending. Speaking about the book tour, I will say that I was very lucky because the book tour you have to book it. So you don't get all these lines. There's kind of like a limited space, and I remember that once when the book tour was where. On the book tour that was gonna be there near me, it was sold out. I was unlucky with that one, but I was like, okay, I did my best. And I do remember that I had NostalgiaCon during that same weekend. But then, one week before that book tour on that specified location, I get an email and saying, hey, we got more space. This is where I get the book tour, right? And I had the chance, the things that I did. But man, you know what? I've been dragging this a little bit too long. That I haven't even telling you too much about the synopsis about the story that we got of Final Space. And like I said, I don't want to go, like each chapter here and there, because I don't think that's kind of like the way I want to tell you. But I'll give you a little bit some snippets here and there. So here goes. So after this Cliff Note version of the three seasons of Final Space, we got, of course, a refreshment about what happened during the finale of the third season. Lord Commander became a Titan. Bolo's dead. Our heroes escape Final Space, but Invictus also gets out of Final Space, which was basically his prison. You don't remember, Invictus is this ginormous light-eating Titan who is hell-bent on destroying the universe. and he made it because he basically manipulated this character's Ash. She basically had kind of like her breaking point after her adopted brother Fox died, and she has all this anger bottled on her, and her last drop is when she finds out that the secret of Little Kato, in which he's basically not Avocado's not real son, and that Avocado, of course, being a bounty hunter, he killed his parents. So basically, that was her kind of like her breaking point, thinking that she's doing the right thing, let's say. And of course, this led to Invictus breaking out of his prison and from final space. Additionally, she let Mooncake getting possessed by Invictus, and both of them are now on a killing spree of destroying the universe. You know, even all the characters, they just look at Gab and they were like, "What have we done?" You know what? I think that people from animation, this is something that they should have said, because shame on them on canceling this. At least give them at least one more try. It became because honestly, ever since that, Final Space kind of became a cult, have a cult following, and nowadays, I mean, it's not as big as Star Wars or Star Trek, but I've been seeing people who notice this. They say that, hey, let's give it a try, and they come satisfied. Okay, so continuing a little bit of the synopsis of the story. Don't worry, it won't spoil too much, by the way. Not spoiling most of the most important parts. The whole thing kind of basically takes place in almost like a time skip between 4 or 5 years, in which during that time, Gary kind of becomes desperate and drags his team in a mission to find and rescue Mooncake. All the while Invictus and Mooncake are destroying the universe, absorbing the life of the universe. It's a catastrophe, and at the same time, Little Kato sends a message to see if he can be quote unquote rescued, now that he knows the secret, his father's quote unquote father's secret. That is when he's rescued by Ventrexians, one of them being his grandfather, and take him home, where he becomes the king, since he was the prince of Ventrexia. So that's kind of, this is basically a lot of the things that have been happening during these 4 years, in which they go into the characters are pretty much in this low point. But that is when finally things are gonna start to kick in. Sorry for the noise over there. Things are finally starting to kick in when a lot of the universe has been destroyed by Invictus, and he finally decided where he's gonna take his final victory, and unfortunately, it's on Ventrexia. So basically, now it becomes a race against time, to try to defeat him. So we get kind of like a separation between two parties, in which Avocado decides to go to Ventrexia to warn his son and of course his people. But of course, they are. Ventrexia is not willing to forgive him, because he's basically a traitor for their people. But at the same time, they have this war against. Again, I forget kind of like the name of the species that Fox was. But basically, these species they were at war. I kind of like that Avocado basically meets the king of that species, and despite everything, it's basically a king that decides that well, bygones are bygones. Things kind of happen, but if there was a way we can stop this, I'm probably kind of willing to listen. So basically, that kind of comes the chance that now they have to join forces because now they have a very common enemy, which is Invictus. And at the same time, on Gary's team, they find out that in order to at least weaken Invictus and, of course, his army of other Titans, as well as having Mooncake, and of course, he brought up, those zombie Garys from Final Space, Garys that died in different timelines and different time spaces and all this stuff. To put a long story short, the only way to weaken Invictus, because he absorbs light, is basically killing off the light of the universe, at least temporarily. That way, they'll weaken him enough to kill him. So if they succeed, they must find a replacement of the heart of the universe in order to bring back the light of the universe. So that's the plan. That's the plan that they got, and you can tell that even the odds are really down. Most of the universe is gone, and even Tribor and his resistant force, they couldn't get as much people. They only he, she, whatever he called himself, because he's from a species that changes gender every once in a while. Basically have kind of like a small army of 25 ships and all this stuff. And let me tell you, almost the first 25% of the story is what I'm telling you. Here is this build-up, for the climatic war. And honestly, I was really surprised that the final battle was gonna take place in Ventrexia, of all places. It's almost like, for example, like the anticipation in One Piece, in which we know that the final battle in One Piece is gonna be on that island named Laugh Tale. So now we got this one in which they really, during the whole series, they build up a lot of Ventrexia. We build up Avocado and Little Cato and their species. The cat people, the Ventrexians. Finally we got it. We got a sight about what they are. We saw snippets from the third season, but now we see that it's basically a kingdom that was on war. They have a little bit of monarchy kind of government. And by the way, the extra chapter that you can read by a QR, it really has a little bit of a samurai vibe. That is kind of neat. And then almost during the whole series is basically a battle in which this is what makes this series very enthralling, because during the whole series it's almost like everything can go wrong and it will go wrong. The stakes are really high, and I haven't seen so much stakes given ever since Star Wars and everything. So I will say that, and let me tell you, the stakes gets really, really high, and it's really bloody, I would say. And yes, and by the way, I kind of did notice that while it does still has its sense of humor, I think that this is probably one of the one of the least funniest of the season, but not in a bad way, because there's still kind of like this. It still has its sense of humor. It's just that it's know that when when there's a time of humor, there's a time of humor. You have to time it right and not feel very intrusive. So you could get kind of like a snicker here and there, whether it is Gary berating Kevin like usual. And there is a character that I'm not gonna reveal you, but has a little bit of a fascination with taquitos. That's pretty much. That's pretty much. Oh, and by the way, I also forgot to mention that every chapter it starts off a little bit pretty similar to the same thing that they did on the first season. Because if you remember in the first season, every episode starts with Gary in the middle of space talking with you, and he just kind of reminiscing the whole thing, waiting for him to waiting for his oxygen to deplete and waiting his moment to die and all this stuff. Well, basically, every chapter starts off with almost the same. Gary, even at the beginning, Gary is just almost in the middle of nowhere. It's almost like he was sucked into the darkness of Kingdom Hearts, let's say. And he says like, "Well, I say the universe, so what I'm gonna do." By the way, remember that I did mention that he had to. You know what? Let me finish this. I'm getting a little bit too excited. Like I said, Gary is basically in the darkness. He said that, well, I say the universe, so what I'm gonna do. So he decided to record an audio log, I mean. And he decided, okay, with my limited time, I am gonna say my goodbyes to all the people I've known. And every chapter he goes through all the people that he met and giving them his opinion, how they meant to him and all this stuff. The funny thing is that he's like, okay, where do I start? There's so much. I met so many people that I don't know who to start with. Oh wait, I know who do I start with. Kevin. Although he does give him a little bit of a pat on the back, and it's kind of cute that he really goes into a big rant, but he's like, well, you were like an annoying cousin, but you're still family. So goodbye, idiot head. That was actually pretty cute. Oh man! I was gonna say something that I just kind of lost my train of thought. I'll say. As for the artwork, I'll say that it's pretty colorful. You can tell that a lot of these pages. Look how vibrant, and this is something that could get away only on graphic novel. Considering that if they made it animated, it's gonna be a little bit more of a challenge because you know that animation sometimes, for the sake of time and budget, they leave out some details. So this one they do kind of get out of the way to have more shading, more textures, more vibrant colors that. Again, you can only get it mostly for graphic novels. If there's a little bit of, I would say, about the design of the nitpicks, I think that I have to get used a little bit to Quinn's new hairstyle. I mean, I did like her with the hair and all this stuff, but I think that having the hairstyle that he had on the animated series was easier to animate. But so this one they gave her a more detail and longer braids. That is something that I had to get used. It took me kind of to get used to. The funny thing is that I wasn't kind of pretty sure of Quinn at the same ever since I started with the series. But once I saw her backstory and all this stuff, she grew on me even more. And I'm glad that how they handled this chapter. And I will say that yes, it does indeed. It does wrap up things a little bit. Pretty nice, pretty nice, I'll say. They do wrap up things though. They do wrap up a lot of things. I'm not gonna reveal too much about it. I'm just giving you a little bit more of that invitation about this book. Oh, and as a little bit of an extra, I'll say that this book also gives a small recipe of how you can make chocolate chip cookies. That's a little bit of kind of like a playful jab, because remember that during the first season, Gary is basically hungry for the huge chocolate chip cookies. I mean, he managed to eat them later, and he's like, "Oh, they're horrible," and all this stuff. And so yeah, but I mean, I'm kind of the kind of guy who actually likes to try new things and want to cook. I'm eager for it. Here it is. The chapter even is called "The Cookie." It talks about how they love the cookie. I'm trying to find a metaphor. What I didn't ask Olin why he loves cookies and all this stuff, but whatever. You know what? I'll tell you a little bit the ingredient. What ingredients do they have? For this one, you need the browned butter, brown sugar, granulated sugar, large egg yolk, whole milk, vanilla extract, red miso paste. I don't know where to get that. Baking powder, dark chocolate, and sea salt. Although I wouldn't go for dark chocolate. I prefer chocolate milk. Milk chocolate, sorry. I mean milk chocolate. I think I talked long enough about my thought about this final chapter of Final Space. It's almost I have the same feeling like I did, with the finale of Gintama, in which you invest your time for a long time with a series. Supporting kind of like the little things, and to see something that's so underrated that once you see it, it's not something that it's not something that you can see pretty much in a lot of mainstream and all this stuff. And this one basically didn't get the fair shot to get its final season, but thanks for the support of the fans and of course the dedication of the creator finishing this story, at least in another medium. It was a brave and daunting task, but wow, here we are. Finally finished Final Space. And meaning the creator was kind of putting kind of like this clasp of friendship, saying good work, see you next time. I wish you luck with whatever you got into the future, whether you want to do a new project or you just want to just retire and relax and all this stuff. It felt something. It's like how I felt when I finished watching Gintama and its finale and all that. So that's all I want to say about Final Space, the final chapter. I highly recommend if you want to get it. You can find it on bookstores nowadays if you want to check it out. Even for that, you just I kind of really recommend you that if you want to jump into it, watch the first 3 seasons and then you try to find a way to get to read the book. It's not gonna be kind of like the same, but hey, what alternative do we got? So with that said, we finally reached the final chapter of Final Space. See you at the stars.